Donald Trump, some story, Mark, eh?
Goodness me. I mean, we may sound like a broken record, but there are some days where it's just mad, isn't it?
You imagine how they would have reported Donald Trump in the old days, knitting a tapestry, even being a newspaper reporter, because it changes every 5 minutes.
All I can say is thank goodness for podcasts, digital media. We can just about keep up to date. I'm Mark Stone.
And I'm James Matthews. It's Tuesday, day 155 of Trump's second term. At the time of recording, it's past midnight in the UK, 7:30 p.m. on Monday in DC. It's been a head-spinning 24 hours. Fears of military escalation in the Middle East, but it's conflict no more, apparently, as Trump declares a ceasefire between Israel and Iran.
Yeah, exactly, James. On a day when the world waited for Iran's response to the US bombing of its nuclear sites, we saw Tehran strike back, missiles targeting a US airbase in Qatar. And with the region on the brink, what happened next? Peace, apparently.
Yeah, Donald Trump, the prime-time president, having enjoyed a sugar rush of military success, he posted on social media, "Congratulations, world, it's time for peace." And while we were digesting that, he followed up with news of an Iran-Israeli ceasefire.
James, that was the sound of the night just a few hours ago in Qatar, the sound of explosions over the skies of Doha. But it seems this was the sound of a conflict coming to an end, at least this chapter of it. We talked the other day about there being a fine line between masterstrokes of statecraft and geopolitical diplomatic recklessness. It looks as though President Trump has fallen on the right side of that line.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mark. Keen followers of his Truth Social account would agree, certainly. This is a man writing the first draft of history, and where Iran and Israel are concerned, he's drafting it peace, game over. To go back on the timeline today, we had Iran's response to the US bombing of its nuclear sites over the weekend. It seems to have been pretty much a coordinated military dance, Iran telling the US what it was going to do in advance, passive aggression, more passive than aggressive. Donald Trump, he confirmed that on social media. I think it's worth reading, actually, Mark, some of his post. A historical document, I suppose, not quite the Magna Carta, but peace as he would see it. Talking about Iran, he wrote, "Most importantly, they've gotten it all out of their system, and there will hopefully be no further hate. I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice. It made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody to be injured." He goes on, "Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same."
And then an hour later, he was declaring it was all over.
Yeah.
Another post, "Congratulations to everyone," he said, all capitals. "It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran will have wound down and completed their progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended." It was a lengthy post. We've just been trying to digest it. And it feels to me as though... Sorry, a call coming in. It was a lengthy post. We've spent the past half hour trying to digest it. And it does feel to me as though there's actually quite a lot of hurdles to jump through within it. It says that Iran will start the ceasefire in 6 hours. And to quote Trump, "Upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world." So to me, as we're absorbing this, it sounds as though Trump is expecting there to be points over the next 24 hours where one side is expected to be cease-firing, but not the other. He says, quote, "During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful." And he continues, "On the assumption that everything works as it should," which it will, he says, "I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war." I mean, James, this is extraordinary. He is distilling a ceasefire negotiation that would typically take weeks or more into one social media post. Interestingly, as we began recording, word in from Tehran that they have agreed to what they're calling a Qatar-mediated, US-proposed ceasefire with Israel. No word at the moment from the Israelis as we record, but this is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and, all these figures, all this kind of breakdown, the 6 hours, the 12 hours, the 24, recipe for disaster, no?
Well, you'd think so, because, in any ceasefire, whether it's negotiated on social media or around a table, the moments before the ceasefire comes into effect are always the moments of most jeopardy, because both sides will want to achieve their goals to the extent that they can. And it appears as though Donald Trump is kind of acknowledging that, saying that both sides will do what they need to do in these final few hours. So that's the moment where it could all fall apart.
I think we should rewind to Monday morning, this frenetic day.
Only a few hours ago.
Yeah, is it still Monday?
Yeah.
We had America's strike on Iran's nuclear sites, of course. We were waiting this morning to see what Tehran's response would be to that. Iran was always going to respond to the attack. The question was how, and what would the US responses be in turn? So, Iran fired missiles towards the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, just south of its capital, Doha. 6 missiles in total. The Qataris and the Americans, they've said the missiles were successfully intercepted. There were no casualties. Iran's state media, for its part, it's calling it an annunciation of victory.
Yeah, so this Iranian response, we were expecting it, and militarily it was straightforward for the Iranians to target the base because it's just across the water from Iran.
Yeah.
And symbolically, it was perfect for the Iranians as well. Why? Well, because Donald Trump was at that very airbase just over a month ago. We were with him in this base in the vastness of the Qatari desert. He was there as part of his Middle East trip back then. Feels like a long time ago now. He addressed some of the 10,000 soldiers, airmen and women based there to roars and applause. It felt a bit like one of those rallies that Trump has given so many of. Behind him at that moment, there was a huge banner with the words "Peace through strength." And, I think that is precisely how he would describe his actions over the past few days. Peace through strength. His objective with all this was to insert America into Israel's war in a targeted way to destroy or damage beyond repair Iran's nuclear capability, and then to draw a line under it. That is what he hopes he has done today. Of course, we knew Iran would respond. He had hoped that his threat, essentially to put a missile through the Supreme Leader's window, if they carried on, would be enough to make Iran's response limp, limited, symbolic. Iran needed to save face, and that is what they did today, and he hopes, has drawn a line under it all.
Yeah, Trump characterised this as a US intervention, not to start a forever war, but to prevent one. This was his justification for taking the step that he did, and there's an acceptance of that domestically here in the States. Many critics have been muted in their reactions so far. Some have not. Our old friend Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's been vocal in her ongoing criticism, actually, of US involvement in foreign conflict. She was on X this morning saying, "No more foreign wars. Trump is not a king." She responded only briefly when we did manage to catch up with her. Hi. Did President Trump get it wrong in bombing Iran?
I have a meeting. You were told by my staff to set up a meeting.
Is he politically damaged? Is he politically damaged?
On an interview, set it up.
I've emailed, but nobody's got back to me. Did the British get it right, Mrs. Taylor Greene? Trump has scored a victory, Mark. I think he will feel vindicated. Iran is weakened, its nuclear capability neutered, if Trump himself is to be believed. Israel has control of the skies over Iran. It can monitor the Iranians, control its military ambitions in a way it hasn't before. So Trump has tweaked the politics of the Middle East to suit America's interests without a single American life being lost. He thinks it's done, but of course he's not the only player in this game.
The other thing he's been able to do rather cleverly is to show off the ability of the US military. That Saturday night aerial mission, 37-hour round trip from the American mainland all the way to Iran and back. It was a neat message.
Yeah.
Look what America can do. And you can be sure that the Russians, the Chinese, others, they were watching.
Key to this is how Israel responds, bearing in mind that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has long been hell-bent on regime change. He sees Iran as an existential threat, finds himself in a position now where he's sitting pretty, and Iran, weakened like never before, nuclear capability degraded, and he has a US ally united in the fight. Does Donald Trump trust him to put down the tools and retreat? Surely, I think the more likely scenario is that Netanyahu, he presses home the military advantage to its fullest extent, exploits Iran's weakness, and ensures that it doesn't rebuild to threaten Israel in the future. Israel will want a ceasefire and a future with Iran on its terms. Does Donald Trump have a deciding influence over that? I doubt it. There is the view, of course, held by some, and with some evidence, actually, that Netanyahu has played Trump like a fiddle through this crisis. Netanyahu, I am sure, will be having darker discussions in private while Donald Trump is out publicly marketing his success as he would have it on social media.
Yeah, and on that, we got another presidential social media post for the ages over the course of the past day. I'll read it to you. He was defending, or he was countering those suggestions that maybe the nuclear sites weren't completely destroyed by those B-2 bombers. He said, "The sites we hit in Iran were totally destroyed, and everyone knows it." Guess what he did next?
Go on.
He went on to blame us, the media.
else?
Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible. He goes on to say, working hard on this falsehood is Alison Cooper, that's Anderson Cooper, of Fake News CNN, dumb Brian Roberts, chairman of Concast. Brian Roberts is our ultimate boss, incidentally, owners of Sky News. Concast, as Donald Trump describes them, the losers of, again, Concast's NBC fake news. It never ends with the sleazebags in the media, and that's why their ratings are at an all-time low. Zero credibility, he said.
I'm just waiting for our name check in that, Mark. Does he not listen to Trump 100?
Although someone in the White House told me they were listening. So there you go. Anyway, he's blaming the media. Very easy for him to do. But it is the case that there are those within his administration, from the vice president down, that have been downplaying or cautioning against assuming that Iran's nuclear program has actually been completely destroyed. It is likely, even probable, that it has been set back considerably, Iran's nuclear capability. But there are experts, dare I say it, who watch Iran very closely and have done for many years, and they say that Iran's nuclear ambitions and its capability have been far from destroyed. And the key part of this is, where is the 400 kilograms or so of highly enriched uranium?
Yeah.
Was it destroyed? Was it moved? We don't know. And the people with the best chance of finding out, the inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, well, they are on the verge of being kicked out of Iran after what has happened now by the Iranian regime. Incidentally, the IAEA believes that the stockpile might well have been moved before the American bombing. So I guess, James, behind all the chest pumping from Donald Trump, other officials have conceded they've no idea where that stockpile is.
If the Iranians have shifted an amount of enriched material, then that doesn't remove the prospect of catastrophic destruction or the ability to cause it. Their infrastructure obviously has been degraded. Building a nuclear warhead will be a challenge for them, assembly plants and so on. Iran will be looking for help with their rebuilding, maybe from the Chinese, who knows. But to have an amount of material that can be enriched, that creates the spectre of a dirty bomb, less sophisticated, but capable of causing a mass casualty event all the same. So, knowledge of what remains of what was taken from Iran's nuclear locations is crucial. But of course, it's difficult to establish, more difficult, as you point out, Mark, if the inspectors are being kicked out.
And that is why, to your point, there will be those in Israel, Netanyahu and those around him, who feel that this is a job incomplete. and they will want to continue. We haven't, at the time of recording, had a response, as I said, from the Israelis to Trump's announcement of a ceasefire. Perhaps he's jumping them into it, short-circuiting the system. He's done that before, for sure. They are, incidentally, the Israelis, continuing to tell residents in parts of Tehran to evacuate. And as I said, that's what makes these moments before ceasefires actually come into effect, moments of high peril.
High peril and high drama. And Mark, it all rolls into this week, yeah?
It is NATO. It's the NATO summit in The Hague. Trump will be there, and he was already going to turn up chest pumping, I would have thought, because he has already got, it seems, a commitment from NATO countries to what he has always wanted, which is that they spend much, much more on their own defence. Look after yourselves. We can't always look after you. They're doing it. They are going to announce, I think, that they're spending much, much more, up to 5%, a commitment to 5% over quite a few years. That alone was a victory for Donald Trump. Now he will walk into this summit saying, look what else I've done. I've managed to get a ceasefire. If he has, hats off to him. But I think there are moments of peril ahead.
Yeah, he's the wartime president on a roll. We'll see how it rolls through NATO come the hour. Thanks very much, Mark. And thank you very much for joining us. Do get in touch with us. You can do so by email at trump100@sky.uk.
Yes, send us your questions. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Leave us a comment or review there, or tell a friend as well. We will see you tomorrow. Who knows what will have happened by then.
Many thanks for being with us.
Bye-bye.